That is a very, 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 very bad message to send to all of the GTA ridings, which is where the Liberals
are fighting for their lives.
So what we have for you tonight is a little bit of commentary on a thing that was reported in the Montreal Gazette today, which kind of fuels some possible speculation as to what the Bloc's response is going to be as a result of the NDP breaking up with Justin Trudeau. And boy, it sounds like they want to rain on Jagmeet Singh's parade. Let's just get right into the article. So this is an article from the Montreal Gazette, and it was released today, so hot off the press. I think it was probably around 3 o'clock or something like that. But let's get into that. Bloc Québécois lays out its list of demands to keep Liberals in power. The Bloc wants more money for seniors and more money and immigration powers for Quebec.
A few days before a parliamentary session that will be marked by the tearing apart of the agreement that allowed Justin Trudeau's Liberals to stay in power, thanks to the support of the New Democrats, the Bloc Québécois is pleased to regain its balance of power and has announced it is ready to bargain for support during confidence votes. And the party led by Yves-François Blanchet has already drawn up the list of demands. Quote, "We are very happy," end quote, Bloc House Leader Alain Terrien said in a phone interview on the eve of his party's pre-session caucus, which begins Monday in Montebello, about 130 kilometers west of Montreal. He called the change, quote, "a window of opportunity," end quote, for the Bloc. Quote, "Our objectives remain the same, but the means to get there will be much easier," he said. "We will negotiate and seek gains for Quebec. Our balance of power has improved, that's for sure," end quote. But a Bloc strategist who was granted anonymity by the Canadian press because he was not authorized to speak publicly was much more blunt. The Bloc, it seems, takes for granted that the result of the next election will be a majority Conservative government led by Pierre Poilievre.
It's not surprising that the Bloc sees the end of the Liberal NDP deal as good news, said political scientist Geneviève Tellier of the University of Ottawa. Quote, "The Bloc only has influence if the government, no matter which one, is a minority," end quote, she explained. Quote, "In the case of a majority government, the Bloc's relevance becomes more difficult to justify because, like other parties, it can oppose, it can hold the government to account, but it cannot influence the government's policies," end quote. The Bloc support of the Liberals will come with quote-unquote conditions, the party warns.
The Bloc wants the government to offer royal recommendation to the party's Bill C-319, which aims to increase old age security for seniors aged 65 to 74 to the same level paid to those aged 75 and older. A bill with budgetary implications that comes from a member of parliament, as is the case here, must obtain royal recommendation before third reading, failing which the rules provide that the Speaker of the House will end the proceeding and rule it inadmissible. Quote, "That's a hobby horse," Terrien said. "We have a bill on that, so it's not nebulous, it's not enigmatic. The government, if they give the royal recommendation to us, it's possible that if there's a vote of confidence, we could perhaps let them pass this time," end quote. Basically, what that is because this is a non-government bill, it is a private member's bill, and it regards budget. They need this royal recommendation in order for it to proceed to third reading. If it does not get the royal recommendation, which the Liberals would have to arrange that, and if it doesn't, then the bill dies. So they're kind of saying, well, if they get royal recommendation for this bill, which would be a confidence bill because it has to do with money, then we'll give the Liberals a confidence vote for that bill.
The Bloc also wants Quebec to get more power in immigration matters, particularly in the area of temporary foreign workers. It also wants to get, quote unquote, the money that the federal government owes us. The demands concerning seniors' pensions and immigration powers are quote, easy, feasible, and clear, Tarian insisted. It's clear that it will be on the table. I can tell you, I'm the one who will negotiate, end quote. But the bloc also has in mind to, quote unquote, eliminate the colossal financial aid, end quote, to oil companies, to grant more funding to healthcare as demanded by the premiers, and to limit or eliminate Ottawa's encroachment on provincial jurisdictions. So those are the I wants from the bloc. Now,
I'm not too confident that any of those are going to get done because they all have to do with money. And, well, the Liberals are already in a $60 billion hole for this budget.
Yeah, and their capital gains tax that was supposed to shore up their budget and limit them to a $38 billion guardrail, that's not bringing in the money that they had hoped it would. So here's the problem. Do you think that the Liberals are just going to hand money over to the bloc and hand more powers of immigration from the federal government to a province?
I don't think so. And I mean, how can you make it so that people have to speak French in order to live in Quebec? I think that was one of the things. Like, when you become a Canadian citizen, you can live anywhere in the country. Like, there's nothing stopping Ryan and I from moving to Quebec right now, except this is our home in Hamilton, yeah. Right? But you can't just be like, oh, well, you don't speak French, therefore you're not allowed to live here. It's part of the country. Like, you might have a difficult time living in a place where you don't speak the native language. That's not up for debate. It's just, you cannot stop Canadian citizens from living anywhere they want within the country.
Well, and here are the implications strategically, right? This is how I see it. So the NDP is getting out of an agreement with the Liberals because they want to distance themselves from it, because all they're hearing at the doors during these campaigns in both Elmwood, Transcona, and over in Montreal, especially over in Montreal, is, you're just the same as the Liberals. Why would I vote for you? So they have to distance themselves. Now, the Bloc, their primary competitor in Quebec is the Liberals and the NDP in some ridings, but it's primarily the Liberals. Isn't that going to look a little sour on your voters if you all of a sudden are going to be starting to support confidence votes to keep Trudeau and the Liberals in power?
Well, I mean, it depends on if they're able to get what they want, because to Bloc voters, maybe these are the points that they care about the most, and they don't really care how they get it. You know what I mean? If they have to make a deal with the devil to get these items, then so be it. But again, a lot of these have to do with money, which the Liberals don't have. So I would be very surprised to see if any of these things passed. I'm not saying this impossible. Right now, I'd say it's 50% that they go for and 50% that they don't. It's a toss-up. We don't know. And unfortunately, that's kind of going to be how things are for the next little while, because the political game has now become so volatile without this NDP Liberal agreement.
Well, and now let's flip it around. So if the Bloc is saying, sure, yeah, well, you give us this stuff and we'll support you in non-confidence votes. Here's the problem from the Liberals. So what you're saying to the rest of Canada is, well, I'm going to print more money, or I'm going to take money from existing programs that are nationwide and give it to a single province, selling out the rest of Canada so we can stay in power. And that is a very, 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 very bad message to send to all of the GTA ridings, which is where the Liberals
are fighting for their lives
right now. That's where they live and die on elections. And also Atlantic Canada, same thing. The Conservatives are now, I think, leading in every single riding out there, as well as the Ottawa area riding. So it's a very risky proposition if they start selling out the rest of Canada to then start dumping money into Quebec, because that's essentially what Quebec wants them to do.
And another thing, they don't have enough time left to pass all these bills.
Yeah, there's no bills. Yeah, there's no new bills that are going to get passed for Quebec. It's basically going to be orders in council only, and like amendments to the fall economic statement to
and
put
things
this
that are
money in.
almost done. I mean, so this bill C-319 that the Bloc wants passed, and they need a royal recommendation for. Is the government going to spend time on passing that bill, or is the government going to spend time on passing the government's bills that they want passed?
Right. And it's going to take a lot of time, right? A lot of time away from the government's bills in order to get this passed. So this is the issue. So it's going to be really interesting just as they weigh this, right? The Liberals are in a very precarious position here. But this is the hilarious thing about the NDP, because the NDP have thought that, well, it's going to be us that pulls the trigger. Well, now not necessarily. And you know what that makes you guys?
Irrelevant.
Completely irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. You have now taken your only kind of ace in the hole, and it's gone.
You flushed it away, or you ripped it up.
It is gone. You ripped up your agreement.
It up. Yeah.
So this is the thing that's going to be really, really interesting as we see this kind of play out. So the Bloc is kind of testing the waters there. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. And I'm very curious as to why the Bloc announced this before the election on Monday, the 16th, not this coming Monday, Monday the 16th, because this could influence some voters in the riding of LaSalle and Verdun. Like, let me show you how close the polls are there, and you'll see why I am so confused about this. Look at those polls.
I think they announced it so that, because it is so close, so that they can be like, hey, everybody, vote for us because we're trying to get things done. We might have time to get things done before the next election.
And I just want to say, the NDP, since the last poll, they've dropped by 4% in this riding.
Yep.
They used to be tied with the Bloc at 28%. So this is the thing. They could actually potentially lose this riding if they tick off the people that are in LaSalle, Emard, Verdun, and it could stay a Liberal riding. That's the thing.
I don't know. Like, it could go either way. They could tick them off by saying, we'll partner with the Liberal government, or they could gain more support by saying, look, we're trying to work with this government to get you the things that you want.
Maybe.
I think it could go either way.
Yeah. So it'll be very interesting. Mm-hmm. But you can also see that the NDP, like the NDP tanked in that. Like, they had a shot at winning that riding, and we'll see what the polls do. And
as we've been seeing, they've been about 10 points behind when it comes time to actually cast the ballot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they might only get like 14% of the popular vote.